Would like to call to order this meeting of the Norfolk School Committee for Tuesday, March 11th at 7:15 PM. Begin with the roll call.
Jeff Chalmers.
Mark Flaherty.
Kelly Peterson.
Thomas Doyle.
Sean Dooley.
Ingrid Alardi.
Okay, as we begin with all of our school committee meetings, we begin with our mission statement. The Norfolk Public Schools offers a safe, joyful, and challenging learning environment that meets the needs of our diverse students. Through school, family, and community partnerships, we provided education that inspires lifelong learners and cultivates caring and productive citizens in an ever-changing world. Is there any public comment? Kathy O'Shea would like to say anything. For those watching at home, there's a very, very big crowd here. We won't pan to the audience, but all right, correspondence, we have none. So then moving on to my chair report. Let's see, update of the Freeman Kennedy School dress code. This is what we discussed last time. We basically just needed to have this, it was tweaked a little bit. This is pretty much what we had before with a couple things more specified, and now it's also in the handbook.
Well, the policy subcommittee looked at it and decided to keep the district policy broad, and the regulations or the guidelines go in the handbook.
This is the guidelines that goes in the handbook.
Yep, so the school committee would need to vote because it's a change. You've already approved the handbook, so this is a change.
Right, so we're adding this to the handbook, even though this was predominantly what we had in the guidelines previously. Any discussion?
What do we do in the days they have pajama day? Because they're technically in violation of the policy then.
Exception for the day.
Okay. I just want to make sure
Yeah,
it
yeah.
doesn't go to
Yeah.
juvie or something as a result.
Same for flip-flop day and
Yeah.
spaghetti, camisole day.
Chain day.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Let's see, and we also need to do the fees. We're not, none of the fees are changing. Beginner band is $100, which basically is for the fourth graders, so they get the first semester with no charge, and then if they decide to carry on after break, the second semester is $100. And then the advanced band, which is fifth and sixth grade, is $200, so basically $100 per semester. So there's no change there. The bus fee is $180, so it's basically $1 a day. For those under the 2 miles, over 2 miles is free. And then lunch fee, we're remaining at $3 and milk at 50 cents. And that's also, that doesn't change as well. That was one that we kind of struggled a little bit with because we're losing money, but I think it's one of those, you're chasing your tail a little bit. If you up it that much more, we're going to lose that many more kids, and that's going to keep our base costs that much higher. So, so we're just going to try to, look at some other alternative solutions and partnerships to hopefully get those actual hard costs down. Okay.
The one suggestion that, in terms of keeping all the fees constant, I think that's great. The one recommendation that we would have is to consider the beginner band fee, just changing the due date to December 1st. Right now, it's due the 1st of January, and the only issue with that is that with our new policy, it wouldn't be 60 days late until March 1st. So we're now at the point that families that haven't made the payment that are 60 days late, that we're trying to track, and the year is almost over.
Okay.
So if we could move that timeline up to December 1st, it would allow us to, resolve that before we're into April and May.
Okay. Any discussion on, any thoughts on that?
There's nothing people appreciate more than a bill in December.
Right, exactly.
But
Actually,
actually
it's better
worse
than
in
January.
Yeah, I was going to say, it actually is probably
It
marginally
really
better to
is.
get it.
People are struggling, and then and also people forget
When does band start?
the beginning of the year.
It's like mid-September, right?
Yeah, mid-September.
Wouldn't you want it closer to the start date anyway?
We let the beginners have a couple of months to see if they're going to stick with the instrument before we charge the fee, so that we don't get into, October, people withdrawing and then us having to refund, because it's difficult to refund payment.
Right. So that
So we give
payment
them
date's
2
just
months
for the
free.
fourth graders. It's basically
Right.
just for the second half of the year.
Yeah, the advance payment is due in
So it's
September.
refundable if they don't like it?
Well, no, and not after the payment's due, but we give them 2 months to make that decision before we charge for the
decided-
beginner band.
After the holidays.
Oh, I
they
see
do it,
what
they
you mean.
have
You
to pay
don't-
for the remainder of the year.
okay.
So they
Whereas
don't pay for the first
56
semester,
are paying.
basically.
Right.
Of beginner band.
I think December 1st is fine.
Okay.
When are the payments for advance band? Is it
They pay that in the beginning of the year in September.
paid up for- okay.
Yes,
Right.
that's paid up front.
Okay. Is there a motion to accept the fees? And if you make the motion, please, if you want to change the beginner band payment due date?
I'll make the motion, and I think changing it to December, what was it, December 1st, you said?
Yes.
That would be, I'm fine with that.
Okay. So your motion is to keep the music fees, band fees, lunch fees the same, and to change the payment due date to December 1st,
Yes.
okay?
For beginning band.
For beginning band. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, just a quick update on negotiations. We had our second negotiations for as far as contract negotiations last week. Things are moving well. Thomas and I were there. Our next meeting is on St. Patrick's Day, and I keep trying to convince everyone that it would be much more productive to go to like Mr. Dooley's for our negotiation, but we're see if this.
Surprisingly hard sell.
It is. I couldn't believe, if Kathy O'Shea was on the committee, we'd be there. So that's how that's progressing. It's going very well. It's very positive. No one's throwing fists or anything like that so far. So we anticipate it's going to be a pretty, hopefully a smooth process. Let's see, and then also we have school choice. We need to have a vote. Do you have verbiage on how you want me to?
Every year, you have to determine as a committee whether or not you want to participate in school choice to give other districts the opportunity to tuition students in. In the past, the Norfolk has never chosen to participate,
Right.
so I would recommend to the committee. I don't see financial benefit to participating in school choice, and it can be problematic in terms of class size and things like that. So I would recommend the Norfolk schools vote not to participate in school choice.
And I think most of the surrounding communities do not
I don't know of
participate
any communities
around here that.
locally that do.
Okay. Is there a motion to either
Not
participate or not participate in school choice?
So moved to not participate.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And that was it for me. So moving on to the superintendent's report.
Okay. We have all kinds of things going on. The first thing that I have for you is a proposal for the school calendar for next year, and we need to vote to approve the calendar. I just want to highlight what's changed and what's different in this calendar. It looks pretty much identical to last year. We had one professional development day for staff the Wednesday prior to school opening, so that would remain the same. We have conferences scheduled at the same time of year, so those are half-days. We had professional development, full-day professional development last year, the Tuesday after the Columbus Day weekend in October. We're recommending keeping that there. We also had the one change that we had a half-day professional development day scheduled for December. We're recommending moving that half-day forward. And you'll see there's a recommendation for a half-day professional development on Friday, September 26th. The reason that we would like to move the professional development day up front is that we are in the process of reviewing our science program this year. We do anticipate there's going to be changes recommended to the science curriculum, probably some new materials, and we want to be able to provide training early in the school year to teachers to support an effective implementation of those recommendations. So the day that we did have this year in December is no longer listed. We also felt December is a very short month with the vacation, so it didn't make a lot of sense to have a professional development day in there. All the remaining dates are consistent with what we have this year. There is a half-day in early release day in January, like there was this year. It's prior to the Martin Luther King weekend. We found for families, it's easier if it's backs up into, a long weekend. And we also have a full professional development day recommended in May, as we do this year, which we use for student placement. So the calendar as proposed, again, is really consistent with what was last year. The last day of school would be June 17th. Pending snow, which we've had a lot of this year, but it's still early enough that it gives us some flexibility in June.
And it does not include any snow days?
No, it does
whatsoever.
not include
Okay.
any snow days.
only thing I would do is I would just change it to does not include snow days as opposed to
Does not include,
5 snow.
okay, does not include snow days. We'll take
Just,
the
I
5
mean,
out.
because I think it just gets confusing for, we're like, all right, well, how many snow days does it include?
Right, okay, does not include snow days, we'll make that change.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 The next thing, at our last meeting, we had a request from the Inspiration Dance Troupe about waiving the building rental fee. Upon further investigation, they are using the library at HOD, and as a nonprofit social group, they don't have to pay a fee for that. So we don't actually have to take action on that request because they're not using the gym. The gym is the only room that we would charge a fee for that category group. But you did ask if you could get an update at this meeting of all the different groups that are currently renting space from the schools, so we provided that anyway. And you'll see the groups' names are listed on the left column. Whether or not they're billed, it depends on what space they're using and what category they are, school partners, rec, things like that. So it indicates whether they're billed, and if they are, what they're billed for. When you see custodial fees listed, those are groups that use the building outside of core hours, so it's on the weekend, so there's a custodial labor charge as well. And it shows you which school and what rooms are being used. So you can get a pretty good sense of who's currently renting space.
You know what the total revenue for rentals?
I don't have that. I could get that for you.
No,
and see what we're-
it's not that imperative. I was just curious if, are we making any money?
It's
Is it-
limited. We are making some money that's going into the, building revolving fund. It's a little different. The bottom group, BICO Collaborative, that's
Right.
a space they're renting permanently
Right.
every day, and we make about $12,000 on that contract.
Right.
The others are paying hourly. It ranges depending on the space. So I could get you the total revenue
And same with
figures.
Norfolk Cable. They're also
Yep, that's a
the
contract, right.
contractual as well.
Yes, yep. But on the categories above, it's an hourly rate, and
Okay.
I can get you the total revenue, but I would guess it's, a couple $1,000s.
Okay.
It's not significant.
Okay. I don't, no worries. I mean, I don't
Okay.
think there's any need. If you happen to know it off the top of your head, it was just more curiosity.
Any questions on building use? Great. I wanted to update the committee on two different things. First, the school website. We've gotten a lot of feedback from parents about the usability and accessibility of the school website and how difficult it is to find different kinds of information on the website. So one of our tech team's goals this year has been to redesign and build a new website interface for the schools. They're doing one for each building and a district that will all mirror each other in terms of the way they're laid out. They have presented they will be presenting to the full administrative team a tentative design on March 19th. It's pretty well developed at this point. And then they're also going to come to present the tentative design to the parent leaders group that meets the first Tuesday of every month. And at this point, they're looking for feedback in terms of how usable it is, what other information might parents be looking for on the web. They're sharing it with staff and getting feedback. My anticipation is that we will have a new website ready to roll out by May. I can certainly invite the tech committee. I was actually thinking in April, it might be a good idea to have them come present like they did last year, some of the tech initiatives that have been going on, and they could show you what that website will look like. Some of the things that we will have on that are easy links to the classroom web pages, but we'll also have a joint calendar so that parents can see, not have to go to HOD's calendar and then to Freeman Kennedy's to compare. There'll be one school calendar and it'll be coded so you can see events all in one place. They will have information for parents, links to educational resources. They will have all of our policy and school committee things. They're going to take out, obviously, there's a lot of things that are no longer active on our current site. So they're working on developing that. I give Mark Peasy a lot of credit. He's been taking a lead role on that, as well as Raf and Michael Yang. So I will anticipate that we'll be unveiling a new website in May.
Ingrid, do you know what the platform is? Is it different than what they're using now?
Yes, and that's hopefully going to be a cost savings. Right now, the web's designed with School Insights, and we have a contract for that. They're building it, I believe, Jeff, that it's on a Google platform,
Nice.
if I recall correctly. Is that right? I think it's on a
I think
Google
that's what Mike
platform.
said, yeah.
But it's going to be a no-cost issue, and they're designing it internally. It's also more user-friendly for teachers who want to update, and upload things. And they're also designing it so that if teachers have a current website, it'll roll seamlessly in. They won't have to rebuild.
Nice.
So we're working on that part.
Wonderful.
So I will invite them to share what it looks like and get feedback with you
Beautiful.
in April.
And we'll have all the financials be able to all roll into the,
That's what they're looking at, to
Right.
streamline things so people can check, balances and things like that. Our current vendor for tuitions, MCC, does not have a point-of-sale feature, so people wouldn't be able to make electronic payments for one-time charges
Right.
yet. But we will have a link to the school bus so you can link on and check your
right.
your
Yeah, because
balance.
right now, there's not even a link. I
Yep.
found that out the other day, and it was like, and I'm like, having to go back through my website, and my emails to find the school bucks link to just
Yeah,
make
that
a
was one of
payment.
the things the parents requested in the parent leaders group, is if they could have a link to school bucks so they could check that all. So that's something they're looking at. All right. The other thing I wanted to let the committee know about is that we are, as a district, currently going through, actually, we're scheduled next year to go through our coordinated program review. The coordinated program review is basically a compliance review run by the Department of Education, and they look at several different categories. They have responsibility for ensuring local districts' compliance with many different state and federal regulations. The things that they will be reviewing are special education programs, so they'll look at our compliance with regulations that are part of the IDEA law. They also will be reviewing the civil rights the compliance with civil rights requirements, so that'll be Title IX, Section 504, equal employment. So that the compliance review will look at that category. They look at compliance with regulations around English language learners. We don't have a population for that, so we're not going to be reviewed in that category this time. And they also do career and technical vocational ed, which we won't be part of. So our compliance review will really be looking at special ed and civil rights. The Department of Ed has changed that process a little bit, and what they're requiring now, they have a self-study phase. So what they used to do is send a team on site. The team would be here for a week. They would review all your documentation of compliance with the different regulations, and then they would go and they'd draft a report. They refined the process, and so now the year prior to your review, we're required to compile all the documentation now, and we have to upload that to the Department of Ed CPR page. So in this phase, they're really looking at it as a self-study. You're supposed to identify any areas that you're out of compliance and work towards correcting them prior to your review. So we're in the self-study phase now. We have to upload the material by May, and then next year will be when we're audited. So they will do their on-site visit between somewhere around September or October. That will be a shortened visit now because of the new process. So they'll do the bulk of their review work over the summer at the Department of Ed. It's a desk review of the material you submit, and then they will only send people out for a day or two to verify any findings that they are concerned about or request additional information. So we are working on that. Anna Tupper has been working really hard. The special ed compliance review is really significant in terms of the material they require. It's going to take several weeks for her to compile everything and upload all the records that we need to submit for that. Roxanne is taking the lead in terms of the civil rights and the employment, and we're going to work as an admin team to support her. So I just wanted you to be aware that that's going on, the timeline. The site visit will be probably September, October. It usually takes a couple of months before you get your report, and they might have findings. If you have findings, you have to respond to those findings about how you're going to address them, and then they do a 3-year mid-cycle review, following that. So I just wanted you to be aware the process is going on. We're working on putting together the documentations, and we expect a team on site in the fall.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, committee reports. Nest, I have nothing to report. I mentioned last time that Nest is going to be working with the TPA, and they're going to do some joint projects together. Jeff King Phillip?
I think the one big thing, and I wanted to actually speak to Ingrid about this, one of the biggest things that came out of the meeting was NEASC accreditation process. We had a report that came back which we weren't in agreement with, and they're putting it on hold at this point in time, which was a bit of a concern back and forth because you need the accreditation. Question is, there were several different towns, Arlington, Needham, Weston, and a number of others that were doing the same thing, disputing it because of the accreditation. I guess it's horrible the way they've been doing it.
Well, the status of that, I did have a meeting with Liz Zielinski this morning because I wanted to make sure I had current information to share with committee. The NAESC accreditation is a process that has been around for a very long time. Most schools, public high schools across the state have participated in NEASC. There is a group of superintendents who have expressed some concern with the process. And so the Arlington, Lexington, that group has expressed concern. The biggest concerns with the NEASC process are, one, that the process hasn't been refined or changed since, and there's been a lot of legislation, a lot of changes to the Common Core, things that have been adopted, and NEASC hasn't really updated their process. Many superintendents have complained about the amount of time that's involved in terms of the self-study phase of that, where they have to put together documentation, sort of what we're doing for CPR. So there's a lot of time involved, and at most high schools, when you're going through the NEASC review, all of their professional development days are dedicated to that documentation process, that self-study. And superintendents are concerned because with all the new mandates that we have, they have no other opportunity to provide professional development for their high school. So they're looking to streamline the process. In addition, the other major concern districts have are that the NEASC review board tends to be more prescriptive than they probably should be in terms of their findings. So instead of saying to a district, you are not meeting this standard, and giving districts the opportunity to figure out how to respond, they tend to be prescriptive, and they'll say, you're not meeting the standard, you need to employ a full-time librarian, or they make very specific recommendations. They don't do that when they do independent school evaluations, or as their international evaluation process is a little more open. So districts are pushing back on looking to see that process be improved. All of the superintendents that are part of that group that sent the letter to NEASC, that letter was written March of last year. They have all agreed that there is significant value in the NEASC process, and none of them have suspended their membership. They have all agreed to remain active members of NEASC and to work collaboratively with the board to refine and improve the process. So across the state at this point, no one has suspended their membership or withdrawn from NEASC. The Burlington Public Schools have said that they're going to do that, but they have not officially withdrawn. That being said, within that group, there are some districts that have said to NEASC, we will not participate right now in the review process until it's been streamlined and improved. And NEASC has granted those districts waivers and extensions. So when I met with Liz this morning, she said that they did have some areas that they disagreed with the report, whether it was being too prescriptive, or they had some areas that they disagreed with the data. There is a public response period to that. So once you have the draft, you have the ability to submit any additional data that you think is not consistent or not accurate. You also can request, if you disagree with some findings, you can request that they send another team out for a day to cross-validate the findings. So there are options in terms of when you disagree with the report, how you handle it. Dr. Zielinski said at this point they're still looking at what their options are, and it's a discussion at the school committee level, but there hasn't been a decision made. I did express my concern about losing accreditation and the concern about the impact that could have on kids' college applications, as well as the fact that they would be alone in that at this point at the state level. And I think that she's well aware of those concerns, and they're going to consider and discuss that further at their next committee meeting.
Yeah, I thought that was rather a major concern.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, because I was going to say, and correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, there's, a couple things. The 18 superintendents that sent the letter and decided to not go forward for the time being, that NEASC granted it. King Philip didn't take that option and decided to go forward with their evaluation. And then now that they've got a poor evaluation back, now they're doing, well, we're going to quit, or we're going to do whatever. And they're not necessarily, from things that I've heard and read, being forthright on, we had this option. They're kind of muddying the waters. And I guess I just worry about us being the lone school that in the state that drops out and loses the accreditation, because now not only our kids will be going to, and I know there was some talk that she said the principal would just send a letter, saying why they withdrew from NEASC. So now not only is your high school unaccredited, but we're going to highlight it on the front page of the kid's college education application by putting a letter in there. It just seems, counterintuitive to, what we're doing, and you don't want to be the, if there's 30, high schools walking out, I think it's a different story, but if you're the only one in the entire state, that's just going to be a big giant red flag. And I know if my child was, like some people we know, was going to be a senior there, that would be very troublesome to me, that, have a chance of all of a sudden you're having your high school being, unaccredited. It might mean something, it might not mean something.
Yeah. There were a lot of discussions back and forth. We tabled it just because there were so many discussions, there weren't really a lot of answers to them.
Right.
So they had to go back and find out exactly, and the executive board needed to meet as well and say, listen, this is where we're going to do, and this is what we need to do in order to be where we have to be.
Right.
And from a board standpoint, our position was, that's great, but we want some answers.
Right.
So next meeting, all the questions that we've been asked, we'd like to know exactly where we're going with it.
Right. As I said, I won't speak for the rest of the board, but my input to you would be to fight to keep this accreditation.
Yeah.
I think, when all these other schools are working with NEASC and have created this separate consortium to work with the evaluation process and things along those lines, looks like it's going to be here for a long time to come. And I don't want to disadvantage any of our kids,
Absolutely.
going forward over something, if the evaluation process was unfair, then I think we should address that and try to correct that, and go through the proper channels and methods, and fight as hard as we can to make sure they get the correct
Sure.
information. If we truly have a poor rating on some of these areas, we need to fix it. And if it's, keeping our accreditation but having to jump through a few more hoops to keep the accreditation, I think that's personally worth it. And so I would ask you, for when you're at the thing speaking for me,
Yeah.
if you could fight for
Yeah,
fight for
absolutely,
that.
no question.
I don't know if anyone else wanted to.
I'm just curious, losing that accreditation for the high school, how could that affect the students going off to college afterwards?
It will have an impact, and that's what KP is exploring more. There are some schools that say, some colleges that say they don't look at and weight accreditation. But there are others that do consider accreditation. And there's, I think Dr. Zielinski really needs to make that recommendation based on the research that she's currently doing. But I think the situation is, you have some districts across the Commonwealth that are elite school systems that have a reputation with many colleges, the Wellesleys, the Westons, that have that some top schools take students from every year. If those schools suspended accreditation, they might have a bye for a year or two. I'm not sure that King Philip is in that position with many colleges. So schools that aren't familiar, they do weigh accreditation as a piece in considering a child's high school experience. So that's information that she is investigating. And again, I do think in our discussion today, you do have a lot of opportunities to work with NEASC, even after the draft is issued. If you disagree with findings, you can. There were some recommendations. Again, NEASC is looking for librarians at the high school level. KP has restructured their library in a really positive way. Actually, they have an academic support center there. They now have a paraprofessional staffing the library. It stays open till 5 o'clock. They've tripled the number of kids that are using the library. So to be cited on that, even though you've improved the library program, is probably not appropriate. But you can, I think, at this point, say, we disagree with this recommendation. We are not going to respond to this particular citation or the warning in this category until NEASC completes their alignment of the process. And I think if they choose not to respond to particular aspects of the report because they're too prescriptive, and that's something that's being negotiated right now, I think there'd be support for that. But I think suspending the membership could be problematic, and to kids as well as to the high school. And I shared our concerns with in terms of the districts, because I have a concern about what that will do for the high school enrollment. I think if they lose accreditation, there's a good chance that many parents may choose to pull their kids out because it's unknown. They'll be the first one to do this, so we don't really know what the impact's going to be. And if the high school loses enrollment, you're going to lose money from the state and government that's sent per child, so that's going to drive your budget down, which is going to impact the elementaries. So that was the discussion today, but I think Dr. Liz was very open to input and is in the phases of collecting information for the committee to be able to make an informed choice.
Yeah, it was very interesting, simply because they were just because the schools themselves that were involved. I mean, you've got Arlington, you've got Lexington, you've got Weston, you've got Reading, Burlington. I mean, these are not small schools. And they had the same concern we did. And the letter that was actually sent by the superintendent of Reading was wonderful. I mean,
But again, John Doherty in Reading, that was sent, he wrote that letter over a year ago, and he's very committed to working with NEAS.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
So
Our position was
that's
essentially
different.
hold. We want to have more information, and we want to be able to have enough information to make the decision.
Right,
But-
as I say, and I think what you have to, realize is, that, those 18 schools saw there was a problem and they addressed it.
Yep.
KP didn't address it and went on with the thing, and now after the fact is saying, oh, well, now we got a better report, we want to do what they did, 18 months ago. And I think the other thing, just to piggyback on what Dr. Alardi said, some colleges look at, and I talked to Dr. Martes and I talked to Dr. Marsden, who used to be, who's now at Medfield, and asked them their opinions as well. And they said one of their concerns and thoughts are, yes, some colleges don't necessarily weight
Sure.
NEAS rating and accreditation and all that stuff that much, if you've never had it.
Yeah.
But if all of a sudden you've had it, and now all of a sudden you're the only one in the state to lose it, now it's right, wrong, or indifferent, big giant red flag.
Oh, no
And when you have
question.
10,000 kids getting, applying, if you got one school that has a red flag, we've got plenty of other kids. We're not even going to bother looking at them, because there's obviously something fundamentally wrong with that school, and let's just shift it off the table completely.
Yeah.
And any of our kids that are borderline, if it's between, me and Thomas,
Yeah.
and he went to KP and I went to Zavarian, and we're exactly the same, and mine, that might be the one that, okay, you can go to Zavarian, I'll go to KP. Thomas ends up getting in, and I'm out in the cold, because, all right, well, his school's accredited, mine's not.
There's no question. I mean, part of the reason for the hold was we needed more information. I mean, for it to come up and for us to have, a block of information to go by.
Right.
We had, just a ton of questions saying, where do we stand? Where do we need to be? What does everyone else say? What are the other schools? And there's still a lot of information needs to come in for us to make a decision. But certainly a decision I have, and I'm sure the board supports it, is to try and make sure this gets corrected.
Right.
Because we don't want to be in that position where
Right.
it's, someone's right on the cusp and doesn't get in because of that.
Right.
That would be awful. So.
Any other comments, discussions?
I'm in agreement.
No, that makes sense.
All right, we have a third reading of policy KBE. Mark?
And the third reading of policy consideration and criteria for approval of school partners, which would be an attachment to policy KBE. And we've looked this over already. It's, like I said, it's the third reading, so this will be the final vote, and then it will be attached to KBE.
There were no changes recommended
Yeah.
after the second reading.
After last time.
Yeah, no changes.
Is there a motion to approve policy KBE as Exhibit 5?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. In policy, we're also looking at making the fee schedule more condensed, more user-friendly, and more, what's the word I'm looking for, easily understood, as well as factoring in what we've discussed about the fees and the due dates and refundability of fees paid. I'm thinking we should have that for next, possibly for a first reading next month. And so that would be just something to look forward to. And as well as we're looking over all the policies that, we're going to be reviewing some of the policies that we need to for the CPR review, seeing what we have to work on and what we don't. And probably going to have to work on that over the next couple of months. And we'll bring them to you, bring them to the committee as needed and as we finish them.
Thank you. Kelly, budget?
Budget, we met last month after the school committee meeting I thought we made a pretty good progress in coming very close to finalizing a budget we would wish to submit. I think we've itemized some add backs if the money were possible, and I think that we're actually meeting here after this meeting to hopefully get a little bit closer.
And are we going to do the?
Is that vague enough for
Are
you?
we
So
gonna-
I think we were also discussing scheduling the public
Public.
hearing.
Scheduling the public hearing, okay.
That too.
Tech committee?
We had 227, we had a meeting, which actually was a great meeting. We actually are doing pretty good coming forward. I mean, last year's meetings were, I guess the best word for it would be ambiguous. This year is a very clear cut. Michael's done a good job of making sure everyone's on the same page and understands what we're doing going forward. There were a couple of things that we were considering doing on the iPads. One of them was Go Math and Acuity, which would be very interesting to do that. And then there was some other technology they were looking into. One was teachnology.com, and then the other one was it learning.com?
Learning.com, yeah. The committee's working on finalizing a scope and sequence of curricular, for the curriculum of skills that kids need to master across the grade levels, and are assessing what we have for current resources to teach that. And Learning.com is another resource that teachers could have that provides instructional materials, mini lessons, assessments towards those technology standards, so.
In the next meeting, they're gonna show us some of the things on it, which is great.
Perfect. And they're going to come and show us as well after
Yeah,
that
I
meeting,
think
right?
I'd like to have the tech team come like
Yeah,
they did
please.
before and do an update for you on
Perfect.
different things that they're working on. I think the other thing that the tech committee was working on is putting together a survey for teachers to assess their own technology skills so that it would help us better plan differentiated professional development. So we're offering workshops before school. Some are well-attended, some are not. So we feel as a tech team that we may not be meeting people's needs, and there may be other things people are looking for. So that's the goal of doing a survey.
Okay, perfect. And get the exciting building subcommittee report.
Status quo.
Status quo, there we go, awesome.
I have something on that, actually. We
Oh.
got,
quo.
just today, two things. We got feedback from MSBA that they are looking for additional documentation on the changes to the space. The pre-K classrooms here that were converted to seals.
Again?
Yes, they have additional questions from the Department of Ed. So we have to provide program descriptions for each of the programs.
Oh, we did this.
We provided them with documentation of what the changes were and why. Now they want full special ed program descriptions for every program that was moved, and justification again on the preschool, why we no longer need the preschool classrooms that were originally scheduled. So I have a meeting with Anna Tupper and Lisa on Monday to look and prepare that documentation for MSBA. It is holding up the closing out of the project. So we just got it today. We have to March 25th to respond, so we will be doing that. The other thing, I spoke with Jack Hathaway today. We were asked at the last building committee meeting to put together an itemized list of additional things that we wanted done, because it looks like there's going to be $150,000, $200,000 left in the building project. So we've been working on that. There's only 8 items on our list, and we're still getting quotes on a couple. The main one was
Shades in here,
shades
right?
for the cafeteria, because you can't see the screen in here. That was one. And really, all the things that we itemized are things that were in the original that have been cut out. So the other one was a shaded area for the courtyard. They poured the concrete slab, and originally it was supposed to have picnic tables and a shade
Right.
covering. That got cut. We'd like to see that back, because now we've got a concrete area and no tables and no shade. So it's not really ideal for an outdoor classroom space. So that was the second one. A request to put a mounted projector screen in the gym, because capacity-wise, if you have the Veterans Day Assembly, any major programs, the cafeteria is not large enough, and so we end up moving it into the gym, and there is no wall-mount screen there. So that's another request. Some of them are small things, like expanding the gate for, that we installed
Right.
around the fields to a 20-foot gate for car access. We have one that's a design issue. They put the swing gates, we moved a swing gate that's by the bus loop now,
Oh.
so they've mounted it, but when it's open, there's no post to tie it so that it doesn't,
Kind of hangs out.
it just kind of sways in the wind. So
That's
we need
productive.
additional posts to bracket those gates when they're open. And then the other one was.
I'm sure the architect's going to just cover that.
The other one is, originally, there was supposed to be a wall and a sign for Freeman Kennedy at the entrance to the access road here.
Right.
And
right.
that got cut out. So the recommendation was not necessarily to put a wall there, but to have some sort of sign identifying Freeman Kennedy, because visitors to the school have no idea that that road comes in here.
Right.
Yeah, it does kind of sneak up on you.
It
that road,
does,
so,
and if
yeah.
you're not familiar with the town,
Makes sense.
people don't realize that's an
Right.
access to the school, and it's
Right.
really hard if we have people trying to come in on Boardman during dismissal, it's,
Right.
it's tough. So those were the major items. We are getting pricing on all of them, some we already have. But I had spoken with Greg Cohen and asked him when we were going to have the next meeting so we could bring our list forward. And he said, at this time, I've been directed to close the project out by the town, and there's no additional expenses. So I called Jack today and I said, I just don't know. Greg's indicating that you've given him direction to close this out, but my understanding from Leo is that we were supposed to prepare this. And Jack said he would rather have us move forward with the list, give the items, and that he would talk with the selectmen today about what they want to do. Whether the question from Leo's side is, do they want to close the project out, return the money to the town, and then let the selectmen vote to fund some of these things outside of the building project? I'm not really sure. So he's going to discuss it with the selectmen tonight.
Because none of these are MSBA matching areas anyways.
Right, they're all additional
out of our own
expenses.
pocket.
But I don't know what the regulations in this town are regarding if that then becomes free cash and how that
becomes
has
free
to be
cash.
Yeah,
so
it
it may
becomes
have to
free
go to
cash.
town meeting. So there's
would.
value to closing it out
Right.
prior and to doing it continually through the building project.
Right.
So he's going to discuss that with the selectmen today, and in the interim, I'm putting together the list regardless of whether it's funded or not. We'll have the expense list, and then the selectmen can decide how to approach that.
Plus, we don't have a final bill for the sound issue
No, we don't yet.
units, and that could
Right.
be more than we have set aside for it. So I don't know if we
Exactly.
want to close it out and then have to revisit the sound issue.
I'm not sure, I think there's still loose ends that,
Yeah,
you
that's-
know,
Yeah,
need to
there's
be
a lot of
tied
loose
up.
ends. Yeah.
So, I know the intent is to close it out. I feel from the school side, and I said at the building committee meeting, I feel it would be not in the school's best interest
I would agree.
to close the project out and not address some of these critical needs, because the money's available in the building project. Once it's closed out,
Never
the
gonna get
shades,
back.
which are like $19,000, is a huge expense for the school.
Right, we'll
you
just
know,
put
and
it
some
in
of
next
these are
year's
capital
budget.
items. So
We can do that, right?
I think it makes sense to do it out of the funds that were
Budget chair.
appropriated for the project.
You're the budget chair, no problem, right?
Put appropriations in
Yeah.
there for it.
And the sign is, that's a $15,000 project, so they're not small expenses. And they were in the original design. These are things that
Right.
were cut because we, for many months, under, Jocelyn Lester's direction, were concerned about being over budget. And now
Right.
all of a sudden, we're not. I feel like we should address some of those things that were
Right.
tabled.
Well, I was going to say, and as I say, and I think Jocelyn Lesser, and they're trying to close it out because we had capped, what we were going
We're
to be
paying them.
paying them. And all of a sudden, now they've.
Yeah, their motivation's
They
gone
also,
up.
all of a sudden, that 6 months that was going to be capped, 6 months is over, so they're not making any more money, so
Yep.
they have no interest in
Yep.
staying on, because if it stays open another 3 months, then.
Then they
they're
don't
on the
get
hook.
this unpaid time. yeah.
But they've been played
Yeah.
funny. I mean, it's, a lot of these things are dragging on
Right.
due to them. I mean, it's not us dragging it on. It's,
Some of it is MSBA, and there is another turnover, and we have a new project manager again, and
That hasn't helped.
that has not helped. But I did send Jack the list today to share with the selectmen, and I'll get the direction from him.
okay, great, thank you. All right, and we have 2 renewal applications for school partners. The first is Exhibit 6, which is Norfolk Rec. And so that breaks down. Is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
I'll second it.
That's your second anyway.
Seconded.
Okay, and then the other one is Norfolk Community League.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Okay. As I'm saying, it's, in the new application process, it has, this is still the old one.
I don't know why people are using it. We've updated the form, so they might be, we'll have
Probably
to
when they have
take a look.
saved.
It could be. We'll have
Right.
to take a look, because
So-
they should be writing what they've done. But they did at the bottom of Norfolk NCL list some of the things that they have funded.
Right. Not really.
Just a few.
Do you have a list of what they funded?
This,
It says partnered with the schools for many years.
some of events, Santa
We
Breakfast.
frequently
Safe
source
Place,
monies.
Public
Go
Public.
on.
That's just some of their events.
Yeah, I guess they didn't list specifically what they fund with the monies.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, can we just, if
We can
someone's,
table that one.
if, I don't know if we need to table this one. We know, we received, we're constantly accepting money from NCL, so I don't think that we need, but why don't we, if someone sends in a renewal and it's on the old form,
Yeah, make sure
just
that they.
automatically kick it back
Yep.
and say,
Yeah.
nope, you did the wrong form.
Yep.
You have to do the renewal form.
We have to see
And
where they're
so,
getting these off. Those are-
So it was already moved and seconded. Any other discussion? We can table it if you want, but if, I'm comfortable with keeping NCL moving forward.
Yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And last but not least is minutes from the February meeting. Okay. Any corrections, changes? Besides the one that were hand done?
Mine's in there.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. And the next meeting is Tuesday, April 8th.
Yep.
I forgot my phone. What, the fancy corrections?
You must not have
Stay.
seen, I usually tag them with a sticky note. She must not have seen my notes, so. All right, okay.
I'm like, oh, they're already
We
corrected.
usually correct them in
Typing.
In
We just-
typing. Sorry, I
Pam-
probably didn't
Pam-
type
Pam
the
is-
page,
Pam
I'm
is-
sorry.
Pam is slacking.
Saving the paper.
Is April 8th work? I unfortunately forgot my phone in my truck, so
April 8th is good.
I think it's good for me.
I may be late. Got a flight coming back that evening.
For me, we're good.
Huh?
Any, we're good?
Not too bad.
Oh, man,
Definitely.
somewhere warm, isn't it? Kelly
Somewhere
goes-
it's
Kelly
not going to
goes-
snow another 8 inches.
Exactly. Kelly gets to go to all the
He doesn't
fun
want his
places.
wife seeing this, that's why I'm saying it's good.
All right, Thomas, are you okay?
Yeah, I hear of nothing in my life, so
Would,
yeah, that's fine.
would an option be the 9th of Wednesday the 9th, or is that?
The problem for me on Wednesdays is we're in session on Wednesdays, so I
Okay.
never know when I'm getting out. It just depends.
Okay.
Sometimes we get out at 4 in the afternoon, sometimes we get out at midnight, so it's, I don't know until the speaker,
Either way, yeah.
yeah, it depends on how the sessions go.
Okay, well, let's keep it for Tuesday then.
All right? And then are we going to do, and then we'll figure out also a public budget hearing
Mhm.
tonight at budget?
Yeah,
Okay?
we can do that tonight.
Okay? All right,
Sounds good.
thank you.